now exerting their leverage over the Strait of Hormuz.
Is Hezbollah a terrorist organization?
3 or 4 catchphrases and slogans all being yelled at the same time. Terrorism, Strait of Hormuz, Hamas, Hezbollah.
Has said since 2003 that they should not be creating.
I'm sorry, did CNN, was Emma the only person you put on this entire panel who knows what she's talking about? I feel like all of a sudden everyone was just like, all right, so we're all attacking her now. Yeah, well, she brought up Israel, and apparently she's not down with Trump bombing Iran, indiscriminately. So, yeah, don't worry. Yeah, the panel has been activated.
They lied to the United Nations. They lied to the international.
We killed the Ayatollah, the older father, who was actually against building a nuclear weapon because he thought that it was going to contribute here.
I'm genuinely shocked that you are defending the Iranians. And I got to tell you, I hope that you tuck yourself in at night under that pillow of lies that you just told about the Iranians. That is a crock of a word I can't say now.
I know that he initially was trying to say, like, paint this entire thing as you pretend to care about Iranians, but you don't actually care. And ultimately, you're fine with their horrifying government slaughtering their own people. They've killed, hundreds of thousands of protesters, and you're totally fine with that kind of thing. But that's not the way it came out, right? It kind of almost sounded like a Freudian slip where it's like, you pretend to care about Iranians, but you don't really care. And then I'm like, but that's pretty much this panel. That's this whole panel. It's just all of you are talking in sound bites, right? Just instantaneous and so quick on the draw. I have to talk to right away. I can't believe you're actually saying this right now. Iran is the greatest supporter of terrorism internationally. It's absolutely disgusting. I am revolted by them. And then immediately the rest of the panel is just like, interesting.
Okay, so the United States is funding a government that an Israeli human rights group, B'Tselem, says is committing genocide, as is Amnesty International, as is every credible human rights group right now. We are there's a massacre in Gaza. There are hundreds of thousands of people unaccounted for under rubble. That's what I define as terrorism. Now, Iran is now exerting their leverage over the Strait of Hormuz.
Is Hezbollah a terrorist organization?
That was literally like 3 or 4 catchphrases and slogans all being yelled at the same time. Terrorism, Strait of Hormuz, Hamas, Hezbollah.
Iranians to have a nuclear weapon, yes or no?
Yeah, nuclear weapon.
Everybody, you're talking over each other. Disagree with your personal description of what terrorism is, and I'm sorry, it doesn't meet the bill of what it actually
killing
is.
civilians is what I define it.
She's doing amazing, but can I be on this panel on their team? It seems really fun and easy. I can do that. I can just sit down and be like, yeah, oh yeah, 9/11, Hezbollah, Benghazi. She doesn't have an answer. Yeah, of course. No, she loved Benghazi and Hezbollah and MS-13. Like, you just yell things out. That's all you got to do.
As a diplomat, former diplomat and former advisor at the Department of Defense who has worked in the region and worked on all these issues, 2 things can be true at the same time. The United States is supporting an Israeli government that has violated international law and committing war crimes, and Iran is a state sponsor of terror, right? Those are both true. These are the realities the United States has had to reckon with for decades of U.S. foreign policy. It is also why the United States has not ever put its hand on the lever in such a hard way as to bring the war to Iran that Iran has been itching for, because Iran is able to defend. It is now had all the possible folks who would have revolted and overthrown the regime. They suddenly woke up one day to have.
Why is she wearing a Black Panther dress? Oh, that is kind of. I think that's unintentional. Yeah, I think that's just fashion, but I get where you're going with that. It does seem a little bit like, Wakanda chic. Wakanda core, is that a thing?
Government that has violated international law and committing war crimes, and Iran is a state sponsor of terror, right? Those are both true. These are the realities the United States has had to reckon with for decades of U.S. foreign policy. It is also why the United States has not ever put its hand on the lever in such a hard way as to bring the war to Iran that Iran has been itching for, because Iran is able to defend. It is now had all the possible folks who would have revolted and overthrown the regime. They suddenly woke up one day to having everything around them bombed. There was no CIA or Mossad effort to actually support a proper uprising, which is frankly what the United States did with the Shah. So we know we have the capability of doing that. None of that planning or strategy existed. We had U.S. embassies being attacked by drones and on fire in allied countries because our allies had no idea this was happening. So the United States went all in on something that Benjamin Netanyahu has wanted for decades. Yep. And we're calling that action and strong. And guess what? The president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, wants to walk away from that right now.
Yeah, everybody
There's no indication of that.
When the president of the United States calls this, what we are seeing right now, a victory, that is entirely rhetoric, that is entirely spin. Military capabilities have absolutely been degraded. Absolutely true. But we are seeing economic impacts. We are seeing downstream effects. We are seeing impacts to the American public without any effort having been made to convince the American public that this was necessary.
Terry, hold on, Terry. The one thing you need in a president in wartime is credibility, and Trump is all over the map. Right? First, it was unconditional surrender and regime change. Now we won. Carolyn Levitt is out there saying the Iranians are defeated and will continue to be defeated. He says, I'm going to end this war. Don't worry, it's not going to last that long. He does not know what to do. And he says he was surprised that Iran, which has been waiting for this moment for a long time, and anyone who spent any time there, anyone who's read a book, knows that the war they wanted was against the other Gulf states. Trump says nobody knew they were going to bomb UAE or Saudi or whatever. Of course they are. And the notion that it's won already or that they're defeated, they just bombed a U.S. air base.
Can I just say real quick?
The enemy always gets a say.
I disagree, Terry, with you, because in this situation, I think...
He wasn't even being controversial. He was just like literally listing a statement of fact. Yeah, Trump has no idea what he's doing and has been giving conflicting updates on what's going on an hourly basis. It hasn't even been on a daily basis. Sometimes, yeah, it's a daily basis, but sometimes it's like, oh, Trump on Air Force One has just directly contradicted himself. He says, great success, total victory achieved, mission accomplished. Trump has just landed and he says that he's now negotiating and yes, he's going to achieve complete and total victory because Iran is willing to give up everything. Iran has just released a statement stating that they have had zero negotiations with Donald Trump. He's lying, and that they want American troops on the ground because they want to send them to the meat grinder, and that's what they're asking for. So that's the updates currently. What are your thoughts? Well, I think it's a noble and strategic venture to go and land in Karg Island. Why do the Americans want to go to Karg Island? What do you think is going to happen there? I've said before, I think America would be capable, probably with its enormous and incredible war machine, of taking Karg Island over. Yeah, probably. I mean, obviously it's going to come at pretty heavy losses, and probably if there's troops on the ground, a lot of civilian casualties, but you could probably hold it in perpetuity. No. And it's going to be unbelievably expensive, unbelievably costly, and it's going to lead to an endless amount of, attacks and just really grotesque, violent imagery that is going to haunt the minds of Americans while this incredibly unpopular war already. It's not even like you're starting out from a kind of like, everyone's on board with this. We got like... America wasn't attacked. This isn't like a revenge mission. This isn't post 9/11 like, hoorah, let's go bomb the fuck out of all those terrorists in Afghanistan. I've never met someone from Afghanistan, but I don't care. We need revenge. Kill them all. We're gonna fucking light that country up. Everyone has to suffer for, the actions of a few people, mostly from Saudi Arabia, but fuck people from Afghanistan. Let's get in there and blow them up. And then, it had a lot of people behind it because they were just like, yeah, it's a revenge quest. And then they started trying to pitch the whole, also Iraq, their axis of evil, they're connected somehow. Just Saddam Hussein, the besties, Osama bin Laden, they suck and fuck each other. You watch out, they're gonna blow up the world. They got all the nukes and the bombs. Better go get more revenge. Hoorah, right? Let's do it. Let's go bomb Baghdad and get in there. And by that point, no, the whole world was protesting. Like, I was part of the global protests that were going on, and they were in fucking every country around the world was basically like, no fucking U.S. imperial wars, fuck this shit, fuck off, blah, blah, blah. And as time went on, we had a very narrow version of events because we only got mainstream media's basically very U.S. imperial propaganda tuned network, CNN, actually, ironically, where they would go down there and they would be like, you know, we're here and we're talking to the soldiers on the ground and what their day-to-day is. And then they're saying that, you know, there's a lot of hours where you just don't know where exactly is this war headed and stuff like that. It eventually, you know, falls apart because as information starts coming out, it becomes increasingly more and more horrifyingly unpopular. Like, it becomes eventually practically untenable, leading to one of the many things, including the 2008 financial crisis. But in the list of stuff that people were just completely revolted and disgusted by George Bush with, so that they were looking for some hope and change by the time Obama came in. But yeah, I was hoping that the headline in your title was not what I expected. Oh yes, no, I delivered.
The fact that the president can be confusing in his language,
that
he contradicts himself,
I
and
provided nutrients to the masses.
Is intentional. It's deliberate
like
deception.
A good daddy should.
Hold on. Is he deliberately deceiving the American public?
Lance is not Gen X. I'm not. No, I'm a millennial. I'm in the middle millennials.
Is he deliberately deceiving
the Iranians?
But the millennials world now
of a negotiation, and I
but
trust me, I
the
know
public,
we're all impatient. We talk about this conflict. It's only been 4 weeks. We talk about it like it's been 4 years, and we're impatient. We want certainty. We want to know what's coming next. But so do the Iranians.
That's true.
And
but
we
here's the thing.
Tell
So if you want certainty, stop. That's pretty damn certain, you know? I mean, I know it sucks because at this point it's like Trump's beginning to kind of understand we're going to have to go to a situation where now Iran is effectively going to control the Strait of Hormuz. They're going to be able to get boats to pay them exclusively in yuan in order to be able to cross. And it's going to be worse than it was before this entire conflict started. And ultimately, you did assassinate and replace Khomeini with Khomeini. And so here we are. What did you achieve with all this? It doesn't look great. That's why he wants to do the special uranium mission. If you haven't read about that one, he's basically got this tactical, it seems like the most Pete Hegseth idea in the world, where it's like, we're going to get in there as a lethal kinetic force that is going to do targeted military precision strikes to begin an extraction mission. Only the most alpha and well-hung men will be able to lead our valiant soldiers into combat, and their heroism will be remembered for 1,000 years. Like all this kind of shit, but they effectively want to get into an area that has uranium enriched silos and be able to get into that part, extract the silos, and then show and demonstrate on like a big press op where I'm sure, you know, Trump will sit there doing the whole thing with his like MAGA hat. People will be walking down. You know, and it'll be a whole thing, and then like they can all stand in front of it and be like, thanks to Trump, we have the uranium now. Iran can never become nuclear because we have the nuclear. This is science and how this all works, y'all. They would have turned this into nuclear, but we got it first. So now we are the real heroes. That's like, and obviously military experts are like, this would be an absolute bloodbath. It'll be a disaster. It's going to be very, very difficult. It'll be very costly in terms of manpower. Certainly we could do a large amount of initial strikes to that area in order to try and, you know, lower the amount of conflict that'll happen. But once, you know, they're aware that we are on the ground in that region, we are going to have to spend a lot of resources trying to get these long cylinder tubes out, which have highly radioactive material in them. So it's not as if we can just like, you know, run and throw them into a truck. Like this is the kind of stuff that if the stuff is mishandled, it can also result in huge disasters, you know, not nuclear explosions, but certainly radiation poisoning and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we need to handle this with care. The whole thing is going to be an absolute disaster clusterfuck, but that's what they want, right? Like that's the off ramp. At least I think that's the closest that they can get.
Then we can't tip our hat.
The reason I think why people are impatient is because they didn't know it was coming. The American public was not sold on this. Congress was not sold on this.
And that means the Iranians didn't know it was coming. No. Mind you, we were putting forces in the Middle East.
But wait a minute. But you've also got Nancy Mace, who has said that Iran is becoming an Iraq. That's how she sees it. Now, that's her opinion. That's her opinion.
Again, it's been.
Yeah, no, she's lost her mind at the best of times. She shouldn't be quoted on anything. I mean, like, not even who should be given the crayons to color the menu, right? Like, no.
4 weeks.
But
she can take a chill pill.
Understood. But if you have someone who has been
the Iranian regime has done around the world, not just to Americans, but to their own people. You talked about rights and things. They killed 30,000 people.
I don't defend the Iranian government, but
That's
the
what you
reason
were
that we
just
have
doing
this
for the last
government
3
is
minutes.
because they reinstalled the Shah.
He asked you a question about, do you want Iran to have a nuclear bomb? And
the reason this government exists is because
you are
I don't want anyone to. I want that we should have denuclearization across the board, and Israel shouldn't have
You guys are really
either.
you're really piling on Emma, because I have not heard either one of you say anything critical of either the U.S. military operation right now, either the fact that Israel.
Who is this for? Like, is it just for enlightened boomers to sit there and be like, yes, no, I want to hear a variety of different opinions. That terrorism woman in the middle, I don't like her, but I want to hear. Okay, now say something mean about America. You said a mean thing about Iran, now a mean thing about America. And it's like, what are we doing here? In the middle of this discussion, how many kids have died? How much oil has been rained upon their populace? Like, the whole discussion should be framed around, we need to do everything in our power to end this. Because, again, this is people who have not attacked us, and we're just bombing them to death.
Has more of a plan and a strategy in the United
The civilian death count is now past 2,000, and that's 30% children.
States, which is supposed to be leader, is following Israel. I mean, come on. That's not I'm asking you now to clarify this point. How do you guys feel about the United States following another country's military strategy?
I'm not piling on
I think we're doing an incredible job militarily. Not very many people would say otherwise.
Are you signing on to Israel's conquest of southern Lebanon? Are we in a war of conquest now for Israel? Because Israel is going to steal some of Lebanon. They're going to go there and keep it. Is that our policy now?
I'm focused on Iran and whether they have nuclear weapons and the fact that they lied about their ballistic missiles.
I'm sorry, we are linked like a chain with Israel right now, and they're stealing. They have announced they're going to take southern Lebanon.
And again, I can take that point, but the apology for Iran is.
You don't have to be, by the way. This is wild, and there's nothing we can do about it. Yes. We will follow them into battle, into eternal battle. Yes, does not matter like what they're doing, how bad it is. That doesn't matter if we're all about to die. We are linked.
Is ridiculous.
All right, you made that clear.
I can't make it any clearer. She just said.
No, you're continuing.
Do we want Iran to have a nuclear bomb?
I think the point has been made.
I don't think that any nation should have nuclear bombs. We should denuclearize across the board, and Israel shouldn't have one, neither should Iran.
The reality.
These movies would not be possible without the support of our executive producers, Political Papi, Monty Mondi, Words Greenwood, Riley and Anna, Sebastian Demmel, Omni, Roller Dragon, White 185, Preston Kroll, Anna Loves Riley, Comrade Junkie, Tigwick, Period, Stellar Gwyn, Bobby Lasers, Doug Caddy, Addercap, Hagbard Celine, Soulcar, Everything Important, Blue, and a huge thank you to everyone else whose names you see on the screen right now. The show would not be possible without them. And once again, if you have $1 to spare, go check out patreon.com/theserfs.